Yeah. So, Karan, we want to know more about your journey with beer and food because I see like you're really passionate about it, and I've seen it through your Instagram account. So, what made you get into that line?
So let's see where to start. My dad was in hospitality for quite a while, as still is. So I guess my first exposure to it was when I started off either watching him work or working with him. So this would have been what 2005-ish. He started his first hotel, so I saw that. I was exposed to that when I was 13, 14 years old. Uh, Post that, I did study hospitality as well at Christ University, which was good fun, surprisingly. Uh, got exposed to food there, met a lot of brewers there, which is what set me on the path that I currently am on. Post that, I did a master's in brewing and distilling here in Edinburgh, and obviously that gives a lot of exposure, a lot more information to play with, and I think that is a key element in kind of pursuing your passions. You need to have that information. You need to have that ability to learn to adapt and then move forward and enjoy it and really enjoy yourself when you're able to act when you have access to everything that you need to have access to. um, what else? I'm working for a brewery now, so my full-time job is to know about beer, to understand flavor profiles and how to sell product. And I think that adds on to me wanting to explore every possibility, which is why when I'm home brewing, I make stuff that you just simply can't find in the market. um, what else? I think as an introduction, I think that'll be how much I can how much I can give you for now.
Yeah. But why beer? Like you said, like your dad was in the hospitality industry, right? And beer
Yeah.
is just one aspect. So, what caught your eye with beer? Like,
Mm, if I have to take it back that way, I think the first moment I can think about was I was in Nice, in France. Um, I had my first sip of Guinness, and I remember having that first sip. And you've seen the movie Ratatouille
yeah,
when his eyes are closed and everything's exploding. That was kind of what happened to me when I had my first sip of Guinness. Just like what is that? Why does it taste the way that it does? And my first thought was, I need to know how to do that. I need to know how to make that because I enjoyed that flavor so much. I enjoyed the fact that it was not a lager. It wasn't just your straight up normal beer. I didn't know at that point that beer could taste that way. Hadn't been exposed to anything like that at the time. So I guess that was the first moment, and then almost immediately after that, I was introduced to Logan at Arbor, who was the head brewer there. Uh, and one of the first things he told me was how versatile beer can be. So he explained to me that he could wake up one morning and go, "I want to put chili in a beer today," and do it,
Hmm.
or "I want to put mint in a beer today," and I can do it. And there isn't any limit to what you're able to achieve if you've got it in your head that there is a way to do it. And I found that really intriguing. Having already been kind of obsessed with food and already learning how to experiment with that, to be able to amalgamate that into drinking felt like a really interesting idea. Um, and the fact that you could home brew, which I didn't know was a thing at the time, I was introduced to that by a couple of friends, and then being able to know that I could do 20 liters of whatever the hell I wanted at home quite relatively easily. I think that was an idea that made me want to try weird shit, and particularly beer having that as an advantage over whiskey or wine or anything else, where it's a lot more stringent. The laws are a lot stricter. So beer in particular, I think was quite interesting that way.
yeah. And you said home brewing, right? And like, I remember when I was a kid, and I used to come and play cricket in your building, and everyone was like, "You used to brew your own beer," and I was like, I hadn't heard of it at that time, so I was like, how is that possible? Like, these are big companies that do it in these huge
Yeah.
factories. So how did you get into it? Like, like exactly like to be at home and just start making beer. Like it has to be a complicated process, like especially being in Bangalore where it's not at that time it wasn't that exposed.
Yeah. So at that point, it still was in a gray area, and it still is. So you can't technically call yourself a home brewer anywhere in India. You will have little pockets of people calling themselves that, but it's actually kind of risky. It's not illegal, but it's not legal either. So because of that, firstly, it was quite difficult to try and find the right kind of equipment or the right kind of ingredients. But as I said, when I spoke to Logan at Arbor, he introduced me to a friend of mine, John, who would later on become a very, very important influence to me. So he then introduced me to a couple of friends that he had who were brewing at their homes, and they were running this little company that was helping set up home brewers. So they were going to Shivaji Nagar and buying a big stock pot and allowing you and teaching you how to use that as a mash tun, because you can't actually buy a mash tun. You have to make it yourself. So these guys were engineers, so they knew how to do this, a little bit of jugaad that you need to do to make sure that it actually works. So they drill the holes in big ice buckets, or they drill the holes in stock pots, and they'd show you how to do it. So I worked with them for some time. We ran this little website as well, which was great fun. Uh, I don't know if it still exists anymore, but yeah, that was the first kind of hurdle that you had to get past, was either making the equipment yourself or learning how to do it. The actual steps of making beer are fairly simple. It can be as easy or as complicated as you want it to be. You technically only need one big pot and one big container. And if you sanitize everything, you should be able to manage just in that. Because what you need to do is you need to soak some grain, take out the grain, boil the product, throw in a few hops, cool it down, put it into a fermenter, and it will give you beer. That's in a nutshell, that's all you need to actually do. So as long as you get the right ingredients and you control your temperature and keep everything as clean as humanly possible, you'll get beer. The difficulty was getting all the stuff organized. So what these guys were able to do, I think, was they had some contacts in, I want to say Germany. I think it was Germany, who'd be sending a big bulk load of the homebrewing equipment and uh, ingredients. And what they would do is split that into smaller ones and give it to people who were brewing. So we did that for a couple of years, and that's a couple of batches that you would have seen me brew in that apartment. And I had temperature control and everything. I'd gotten a little bit more into it by then. But yeah, it was initially quite challenging, but I think that was part of it that made it quite exciting as well. It felt a little bootleggy. It felt a little bit prohibition era kind of setup. It was good fun. It's always fun to do something that you think you shouldn't be doing.
That's great that you mentioned that, because I really wanted to ask you this question. I've been itching to ask you this question. I'm a big fan of beer,
Right.
like huge fan, but I don't know enough about it to go on and have a lengthy conversation with someone about it. So one of the first things that always stands out to me about beer is the vast array of flavor profiles. I wanted to ask you in particular. I went through your Instagram page and I found out that you've got the flavor profiles, the notes, everything down to a science. And like with a sip, you're able to identify exactly, what's making the beer that it is.
Yeah.
Is it something you learn or develop over a period of time, or is it something that you're naturally gifted with?
I guess the actual words to describe them, I think, come a little bit more naturally to me. I've always been the kind that thought quite a bit about food and flavor, like even as a child. So I think that comes a little bit more naturally to me. But beyond that, everything is learned and everything is taught. Everything is teachable, so to speak. Because there will be eh, certain flavor profiles that you might be able to pick up more than other people, and that can be genetic. But beyond that, you will be able to develop over time. It's how you're actually able to portray that, to be able to communicate that. And I think that is the bridge that's sometimes a little bit more difficult to cross.
Okay.
Because you will pick up on the flavors. They're there, the distinct flavor profiles of each ingredient or each little technique that a brewer has used is there, and you'll probably pick up some difference. But in order for you to actually be able to describe it, you'd need to have the vocabulary in place, and you'd have to be able to communicate your point forward. So I think that comes with a little bit of time. That comes with speaking to the right people, doing a few tastings, maybe reading a couple of books here and there if you're that keen. There isn't any lack of information. The availability of information is there. That's the advantage of having internet to us all the time. So as long as I think the motivation is present, there's definitely a lot that you can teach yourself, and that extends to food as well. That extends to anything that you could eat or drink.
Right.
Yeah, and I've also noticed you've gone into food as you were always into food, but I think you like people do it with wine and cheese. I think you do it with beer and food as well. So,
Yeah.
uh, I think that interests you, and I I've also realized that you make your own food at home, and you also make your own beer. So, what is like the craziest combination you've made between?
Oh, right. That's a good question. Uh, it's been so much. It's hard to actually pinpoint. As a food pairing, I did a really interesting one recently. So I made a chai inspired beer. So it had black tea, ginger, and literally every single spice you'd find like a Suleimani chai or something. So I made a beer with that, and when combined with, say, a gulab jamun or uh, an Indian sweet that has similar spices, that worked out really nicely. And it's something that you don't really think about. It's something that you don't really find as beer pairing. So that's one of the things I've been trying to focus on is Indian flavors, because you don't really find that, particularly here in the UK. You don't find that at all. So I do like the idea of playing with Indian flavors in and Indian spices and chilies and stuff in beer and then pairing them with food. That's kind of the unique angle that I try to take with it.
But what do you look for, like when you're pairing, like beer and food? Like what has to be a common point, and what has to be the contrasting point?
I guess there's not a hard and fast rule for that, because as with food and wine pairing, or with cheese and wine pairing as well, there are a couple of different ways that you can approach them. So you can go with complementary flavor profiles. For example, red wine and red meat. Easy pairing, it will work every single time. But then you can try and contrast it as well. So you could go for a heavily barrel aged white wine with, or a sherry with red meat, and it still works. So you can contrast, or you can kind of complement whatever you're doing. So I guess a decision comes down to what you want to achieve. Do you want it to be harmonious, or do you want it to kind of disrupt your palate a little bit? There's a couple of ways that you can approach that, which is why it's so versatile, which is why it's so much fun. And at the end of the day, it is very subjective. Like your taste and my taste will be different. If something really works for me, it may not work for you. So it depends on what scale you're doing it as well. So if I'm doing it for myself, it can be the spiciest thing on the planet and blow my head off, because that's what I want for the day. But if I'm cooking for someone else, particularly if I'm cooking for my white friends, I can't do that, because their palates just can't take it.
Right.
Even if there's too much pepper in it, they'll probably think it's spicy. Versus I'm just sitting there and eating raw chilies. So it's who your target market is at the time as well. You need to consider that. So there's a lot of variation with what you can do. It's a question of trial and error as well.
I've also noticed, like, uh, again through your Instagram account, like this journey of beer has taken to you to like crazy places, and like, what is the journey been like from India to wherever you've gone?
It's been unreal. I've been very lucky. I've had a lot of support from my wife and from my family. It's been incredible. They've provided me the opportunities, firstly to come and study here, and then to settle down. There were a lot of challenges along the way, but that did allow a lot of exposure. I've traveled to Belgium, I've traveled to Germany, I've traveled all over Scandinavia, and I've learned a lot about the flavor profiles there. I've learned a lot about the beer there, about local products there. Um, but at the same time, getting exposed to all of that also allowed me to kind of figure out what I like and what I could do, and that's played a big part in my professional career as well. Because that amount of confidence is needed when you try to walk in and you try to sell something to someone, or if you try to run a bar, or if you try to do things like that. You do need to have enough information that you're confident that you can stand up there and you can um, convince people to do things that you want them to do. It's been a whole lot of fun. I mean, the only word that I can keep using is lucky. I've been extremely lucky to be on the journey that I have been on.
Now, um, when it comes to like um beer, where do you think India could possibly go with like? I mean, there's just a few companies only making like really good beer in India, and just a few like the regular pubs and bars that have a few breweries. Where do you think? Because this is such a huge industry, and nobody actually realizes that it's like untapped. So, where do you think it can go?
The unfortunate limitation that's kind of halting India's progress, particularly with the alcohol industry, is the government laws. It's quite archaic. It's quite outdated, and I think that's one challenge that's going to stick around for a while by the looks of it. Particularly when government agencies or the government bodies are going to continue to play the religion card, then it continues to remain a taboo. And as long as that's is looked upon that way, then progress in the industry is going to be difficult to come by. Having said that, even if you look at the last 10 years, the industry is unrecognizable from where it began. Because it started off, what, 2008, we had our first micropub, and that was in Gurgaon. 2010, it hit Bangalore. So you see in 10 years where it's gone. It's absolutely insane. There's 50, 60 brew pubs. There's a couple of companies making their own bottled products, and they're all good. They're all very good product. To the extent that when Brewdog launched Brewdog being one of the biggest craft beer companies on the planet, when they launched their product in India, it wasn't even well received because because people in India were drinking better product already. So the quality is not an issue, though the legislation needs to be eased, because right now only 6 or 7 states can even have micropubs, and bottling lines and bottling plants are even harder to find, being Goa and Bangalore being the only exceptions as far as I can see right now, though the information I have might be slightly outdated. But there is a lot of room to grow because it's a potentially massive market. Obviously, with the number of people there and with the number of people that would probably want to consume beer during hot days, which is predominantly what we get, particularly down south. So the potential is huge. I'm very excited about the next 10 years. I think there's going to be a lot of change. There's going to be a lot of difference because people are now demanding for it. You're not going to sit quietly and take it anymore, because now you are exposed. Everyone in India is exposed to being a global citizen. So you see that people in the UK are getting better product. You're seeing people in the US getting better products. So now you're going to demand it. And as you demand for things like that, it is going to change. I think there's a huge market for ciders in India. I think there's a huge market for sour product. I think there's a huge market for radlers and things along those lines. Um, and I think that will get better. It is getting better already, and I think it's only going to go on the up and up.
What
I just
about
wanted to
you?
ask you.
Okay, sure.
Sorry. I just wanted to ask you on sort of parallel line. Um, your journey into food and drink has taken you, as you said, to many places. Um, I just wanted to ask you, what's the most challenging thing you had to face while pursuing something that's not really commonly heard of?
I guess in the beginning when I was what 16, 17 and deciding to go down this path, I think there was a lot of pushback from kind of the peripheral family where you'd have the occasional person coming and asking you like why do you want to become a waiter? Why do you want to become a cook? Like that kind of question was being popped up initially, and as a hot-blooded teenager, that was very frustrating to hear. Now thinking back on it, I'm able to be much more mature, and I wish I was more mature in my responses at the time as well. But yeah, that was initially quite a bit of a challenge, and then post that, as I was graduating, there was there were a lot of opportunities that were popping up, but everything just looked a little shit. It just looked a little. It frustrated me that the pays were so low, that big companies were trying to take advantage of students that were desperate for jobs. For example, when I was graduating from Christ, I was in charge of placements to try and get people jobs post our graduation. Uh, and I'm not trying not to name names, but a big hotel chain came by for interviews, and the offer was it? So this was 2016, 2015, 2016. They were offering $11,000 a month. How the hell is
Wow.
anyone going to live on that? And you know what hours you need to work in hotels like that? It's 18 hours a day sometimes. You're working 60, 80 hours a week and you're getting paid 11 grand. There are drivers that get paid more than that. There are guys and we paid 4 lakhs a fucking year for an education. So that that was definitely quite frustrating. And then as I went into beer a little bit more, I realized there were another couple of discrepancies in payments there as well, which I think has now been predominantly rectified. But so everyone in brewing in India, all the brewers, or at least 90% of them, would have studied here at Heriot Watt, the university that I studied at. It's very, very popular. A lot of Indians come and study here, and a lot of them go back. So a lot of them have an excellent education when it comes to being able to brew, but they would be getting paid a lot less than someone from the US or someone from Europe with the same qualifications. So that kind of white worship was still existed, and it was there was this impression that because these guys are from over there, that they're going to be better than an Indian with the same qualification, which was very, very frustrating at the time. And I think that has mostly been rectified. It's still kind of there, but those were kind of challenging times and moments when you saw that. It can be very off-putting when you see things like that. To the extent that the hotel that came to Christ, I didn't even allow any of my classmates to go and sit for the interviews. I said, you increase your offer or go away, because it's not fair.
Exactly.
Because at that point, you're not even going to be able to make the money back for the big price that you paid for even getting that piece of paper, that certificate, that degree. You're never going to be able to make that money back.
What about
Wow.
you?
Yeah.
Like, what are your plans now, like for the future and stuff? With
Ah, right now, I'm just very, very happy where I am. So I kind of don't want to disrupt that status quo that I've kind of managed to find myself into. The job that I've got is excellent. I get to work quite a bit from home. I get to finish off at 5 o'clock, which is brand new to me. I've never worked a 9 to 5. It's quite comfortable. Pays decent. So as of now, there's nothing to change. My wife has her own company here, so we're definitely not going to move because she's settled in. Uh, so yeah, as of this moment, I think I'm just happy where I am.
and you work
That's
for
great.
a beer company, right?
Yeah. It's a brewery called Overtone. It's based in Glasgow, and it's exactly the kind of company that I could get behind. They don't have a core range. They don't repeat the same beer again and again. It's always something new. It's always something innovative, and that's exactly the kind of product that I would be wanting to fling. So it's been a dream so far. It's been 6 months since I've had this job, and it's been absolutely excellent.
That's amazing. I wanted to get your thoughts about overtone and
Mhm.
the overall direction of the company. Um, So, as you said, in India, there are so many micropubs that, try to get started, but they fail, right? Because usually over here, it's because of the legislation and stuff. But I wanted to ask you, in a place like Glasgow, Scotland, right? It's pretty much the hub of all things great that are related to drink. How do you guys stand out from your competition?
Right now, as well, actually, not even right now. As a company, from when it began, Overtone's kind of focused on, like I said, not having a core range, and I think that's held them in good stead. Uh, Being able to provide new product pretty much week on week is
Okay.
is something that makes it really, really exciting. It's something that ensures that the public keeps coming back to it. And at the same time, even when we do revisit recipes, the brewers ensure that the product is slightly better than the last time. They're always reading, they're always looking at new innovative ways to kind of keep the product at its standard or improve it. So, we've changed conditioning times, we've changed temperatures that we brew at, we've changed the way that we add the hops, those kind of little tweaks here and there, even if they are the same recipe, we try to change. And that's been really, really important to ensure that, firstly, people that do drink us already keep coming back. And it also ensures that we're able to get into new markets because it's new product and it's new innovations.
Now, I have like one last question for you, which is for anyone who wants to get into brewing beer, or not just brewing beer, just tasting beer and enjoying it for what it is. What would you suggest them do? Like, because most of the people are uneducated with this, and they just go up and they buy the biggest brand on the card, like on the menu card. So,
Yeah.
what would you suggest for like home brewers, any type of brewers, or anyone who just wants to drink it?
Yeah. My first suggestion would be to ask as many questions as you can to people that may have a little bit more experience, so that you find the product that you like. I think anyone that says they don't like beer has just not tried enough, because there is so much of a range. You will find something that you enjoy. So first things first, you try, keep your mind open and try as much as you can, and you'll find either a style, a flavor profile, a hop, something that you like. You will find one. And once you find that, then you start looking for more things like that. And then as you keep trying, you'll develop your own vocabulary for it, you'll develop your own taste for it, and eventually you will stop drinking just for the buzz. That's what you want to achieve. You want to be able to sit down and really enjoy a beer, and instead of drinking 6 pints of something that you may not even like just because you want to get drunk, you'll drink two of these, you'll really enjoy it, you'll get a little bit of a buzz, and you'll go home. It depends on that as well. Like, okay, yeah, it's a Friday night or something, you want to get drunk that bad, take some shots and you'll be fine. That's once in a while, it's okay to do. But for in order for you to really enjoy yourself, you need to take that out of your head. The getting drunk part needs to be secondary. It needs to be a happy bonus, and that comes from trying and finding things that you like. It could be cocktails, it could be wine, it could be whiskey, it could be even something non-alcoholic. It's fine. Develop a flavor profile for what you like. Keep trying, keep an open mind. That's the best advice I could give it.
And for the
That
home
makes
brewers,
sense.
any tips and suggestions?
Ah, read read a lot. It sounds like a silly thing to say, but the more information you have, the more control you'll have. The more control you'll have, the better product you'll make, and then you'll just keep going. You'll keep getting better. So there is information out there. Again, ask people, ask tons of questions. There's tons of forums on Facebook that you can join. Just keep learning, and it'll just keep getting more and more enjoyable.
Akul, do you have any questions?
No, I think that pretty much settles it. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Karan, for
Hey,
being a
my
part.
pleasure, man. It's been great fun. And if there's anything else that I can help you guys out with, any kind of information that you need, please fire away as many questions as you have.
No, this was amazing, and I can't wait for the viewers to see this because it's something different and it's out there.
Excellent, man. Happy to help. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.
We wish you the best, Karan. Take care.
Thanks
And
a lot.
yeah, keep innovating.
For sure, man. Keep in touch.
Thank you, Karan.
Cheers.
See you, Karan.